God the Father's worst day when his son went to the cross. So he had some bad days. I'm sure the fall in the garden was not a good day. Flooding the world was not a good day. Punishing the Israelites was not a good day. But to see his son dying on the cross was a bad day. And I can imagine as a father being willing to do that and put your son through that kind of anguish and pain. But he did it for who? For us. So we can have a relationship with him. And we're going to look today really at the questions Jesus asked on his way to the cross and on the cross. And I find it kind of interesting the kinds of questions he was asking people, because they're very good questions for us today. Very good questions. Things like, what do you want? What are you looking for? Why are you asking? And really it comes down to Jesus, through these questions, trying to get people to think about what they're doing. What they're doing with their life. What are they even doing? Why are they even here? And that's a good question for us, isn't it? What are we doing? What do we want? What are we looking for? And we're going to start by going to Mark chapter 14. And this is when Jesus is in the garden. So, of course, we've already gone through the time where Jesus spent having this Last Supper with his disciples. We have Judas has gone away to betray him. Did Jesus know he was going, by the way? Of course he did. Knew what he was going to do. And he has gone to the garden. In the garden he was going to spend some quality time with his Father, because he knew what was ahead of him. As a human being, what he was going to go through was literally going to be excruciating. Painful. In so many ways. I mean, he already told disciples, you're going to abandon me. That's got to be painful. He was going to be betrayed by one of his close friends. That had to be painful. And then to physically go through what he was going to go through was going to be very difficult. And in Mark chapter 14, starting in verse 35, Mark 14:35, and Jesus went forward a little and fell on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. As a human being, did he want to go through this? The answer, obviously, is no. Nobody would want to go through what he was going to go through. And he asked his Father, if there's any other way, let this cup pass from me. And what was the answer? There is no other way. Therefore, he said, not my will, but thine be done. And he resigned himself to the fate. Now, verse 36, and Jesus said, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt. I like the way he says that. Everything's possible. Except there was no other way. By God's character, there was no other way. It had to be a sacrifice. It had to be a holy sacrifice. It had to be a perfect sacrifice. Somebody had to pay. God could not say, well, I'm a God of love, so I'm just going to let everybody off the hook. No, because he's also a holy God. He's also a just God. And this is the only way it could be. And then in verse 37, and Jesus came and finds them sleeping. He had went with three of his closest friends, James, John, and Peter, his inner circle. The ones who were supposed to be there to encourage him and keep him strong and to be with him. And what were they doing? Well, Jesus over there pouring his heart out, they were sleeping. In fact, other accounts show that he went, prayed for an hour, came back, they were sleeping. Woke them up. What are you doing? Went in for another hour, came back, woke them up. What are you doing? And then the third time went back and said, forget it. You're sleeping. But look what he says. Simon. Out of all of them, he says Peter. Because Peter was the one he was closest to, wasn't he? John was the beloved, but Peter was the one he had a very special relationship with. And he said, Simon, sleepest thou? Couldst not thou watch even what? 1 hour. Couldn't you do even this? And of course, in other accounts, we see that the spirit may be willing, but the flesh is weak, isn't it? Watch you and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit truly is ready, but the flesh is weak. And we sit here and realize that Peter was going to be tempted that night, wasn't he? I always go back to this and always wonder in my mind, if Peter could have stayed awake and prayed and prayed and prayed, could he have actually overcome the temptation and could have been there for Jesus and could have encouraged him? And the answer is what? No. No, he did not. He did not watch. He did not pray, which comes to us. Are we, like the kids say today, woke? No, we're not going to say that, are we? No. Are we awake? Do we realize what's going on in the world around us? Do we realize the temptations and things that are before us? Do we understand that life is hard? Do we understand that we have trials and tribulations ahead of us, that the road's going to get rocky times? Do we understand that? And are we awake enough to realize that we need to be in prayer, that we need to be in His Word, that we need to be preparing ourselves for those trials and tribulations? Do we understand that? Did Peter? No, he just had a big meal. It was late. It was quiet. How many of us would have been asleep? Oh, it was so hard. An hour? How many of us ever prayed for an hour? That's hard. And here Jesus says, can't you even stay awake an hour? Can we stay awake? That's what we're called to do, isn't it? Paul writes several times. You need to stay awake. You need to stay aware. Those who sleep, sleep in the night. Those who sleep are going to miss out, aren't they? Those we got to stay awake and watch, don't we? And be ready for what's going to come. Because what is ahead, folks? Everybody go this. In Peter's case, he even told him what was ahead. You're going to be tempted 3 times to deny me. You're going to deny me 3 times. And what was he doing? Was he praying, God, please help me overcome this? No, he said, I've got this. I would never betray you. I would never deny you. We need to constantly be in prayer, don't we? We need to constantly be in His Word. We need to constantly be ready for what is ahead. Because we don't know what the tests are ahead. We don't know what the temptations are ahead. Are we going to be ready for those things? So we're going to start out tonight by that question. Are you awake? Can we stay awake and prepare ourselves for what is ahead? Let's go to a couple more questions. Let's all go to Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26. So what came after the prayer in the garden? Everybody knows their timeline, right? After the prayer in the garden came the arrest. And that's what we see here in Matthew chapter 26, starting in verse 47. Matthew 26, verse 47. And while Jesus spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he, hold him fast. Now why would he need a sign? Well, because these guys worked, they weren't sure which, they all looked the same. They're a bunch of guys from Galilee with beards, right? In the middle of the night. Which one are they supposed to grab? Can you imagine them grabbing the wrong person? What would have happened to them? You got to get the right person. Judas says, I will point you to the right person. Verse 49. And forthwith he came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? This is a good question. Why did you come here to do what you're doing? What? And this is something we always have to kind of stop and think in our mind every once in a while. Why are we doing what we're doing? Should there be a purpose behind it? What was Judas doing? Why was he there? What was he expecting to accomplish out of this? 30 pieces of silver? Was that his end game? And there's been all kinds of writings about what Judas wanted, why he betrayed him. He wanted a revolution. He was a zealot. He wanted Jesus. He thought maybe this would rise Jesus up to take the kingdom. Thought maybe this would get people riled up. Why was Judas there?
He stopped believing and made money out of it.
Why was he doing what he was doing? Why was he there? Why was he betraying him? Wherefore are you come? And that's something we have to think about. In all the things that we do. Why do we do what we do? Do we do it for money, for power, for prestige, why do we do what we do? Are we doing it, what should be our motivation? You've heard it here 1,000 times. Because we love who? Love God and love our neighbor, right? And we want to be a witness to those around us. We want to grow as Christians. Why do we do? Why are we here? What are we doing? Why should we read the Word of God? Why do we go to church? Why do we go and work? Why do we go? Why do we do the things we do? Is that a good question still today? Wherefore art thou come? What are we doing this for? And we should be doing all things to whose glory? And for eternal things, shouldn't we? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And behold, one of them, which were with Jesus, stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Now we know this is who? Peter, the great swordsman. Took off his ear. And then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place. For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? In other words, Peter, what are you doing? What are you doing here? What are you thinking? To come and pull out a sword as if Jesus needs defense. As if we should fight against the world's way, right? Isn't that the way the world solves things? With swords, with fighting, with killing, with destroying. Is that the way we should be doing it? No. It's not the way we do it. Why are you doing what you're doing? Don't we know who God is? Does God need us to defend him and protect him? No. In fact, we should always be ready to just give a reason for the hope that is in us. Give a reason for the fact that we have peace. The reason for the why we have joy. We're giving reasons. We're not attacking. Because those who live by the sword will what? Die by the sword. And I find it interesting that it is Peter in his letters that really brings this home. Don't, as we go out in this world, play their game. Don't go out and fight like they fight. The only reason anybody should ever hate us, the only reason everybody should bring any charge against us is because we told people the what? Truth. Don't come with swords. Come with the truth. Right? In fact, he goes further, verse 54. And how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled that thus it must be? Which brings the question, don't you realize, Peter, why I'm here? See, of all the people in the garden, who was the one sure about why he was there and why what was happening to him was supposed to happen? It was Jesus, right? Had he told the disciples what was going to happen? Had he told them why it was going to happen? Yes, but they did not believe, did they? But Jesus understood. Why did he come? Same reason the angels told his mom and dad, the same reason the angels told the shepherds back at his birth, the same reason he has told people from the very beginning. He came to die for the sins of the world. Right? That's why he came. He was one of those rare human beings. You could even probably say one of the only human beings, because there's others that were prophesied to do certain things. But Jesus knew exactly why he came and what he was doing and why he was to do it. And now it's coming to fruition. And we should not try to stop the will of God, because the will of God will occur, won't it?
Well, I was just thinking about Isaiah and how he could read every verse that said this is going to happen and that's going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be weird, reading your life story and the prophecies, reading things 600 years before and saying, ooh, that's going to happen. Ooh, ouch. That sounds painful. But he could read it and knew it was coming. But he's God too, so. But yeah, so in the garden we have here Judas, and Jesus asked him, why are you doing this? Why are you here? And what should have Judas said? I don't know. What should I do, right? And Peter, why are you doing what you're doing? What should Peter have answered? I don't know. What should I be doing? And what did Jesus say? I know why I'm here. and I'm going to go do it. How about us? Do we ever ask ourselves why we do the things we do? Why are we here? Why we go to church? Why we read the Bible? Why we pray? And if we ask, what will God promise to give us? Wisdom. To know. And He will show us, won't He? Why we should do what we do. Let's go to the trial now. Let's go to John chapter 18. We'll start as he did with the Jewish trial. John chapter 18. John chapter 18, verse 19. John chapter 18, verse 19 says, "The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine." So the high priest, what have you been teaching? What have your disciples been learning? Who are they? All those kinds of things, right? This is a trial. Because the purpose of a trial is to find out what? Truth. It's supposed to be the seeking of truth, isn't it? How many think the high priest was seeking the truth?
Seeking to excuse.
Verse 20. Jesus answered him, "I spake openly to the world." Did Jesus have a lot of secret meetings and things like that? No. There were times that he spoke specifically to his disciples to help them understand. But when he spoke the doctrine of the kingdom, the doctrine of salvation, the doctrine of sacrifice, all those kinds of things, where did he do that? Openly. After all, it wasn't hidden. "I spoke openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whether the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing." So, here's a question. Who should have known what Jesus taught? Everybody. Including, who tended to stop by the temple and the synagogues every once in a while? The high priest and his people, and things like that. They knew exactly what he was teaching. Verse 21, "Why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said." If you really want to know, ask the people who heard it. Which is kind of interesting. I like the way he says that, because can we do that? If you want to know what Jesus taught, who should we ask? The people that heard it. And then did what? Wrote it down. Because it isn't a secret, is it? The teachings of Jesus are openly written and openly preserved so that we can know them. What is the high priest's problem? If what he was teaching was out there in the open and everybody knew what it is, how come the high priest asked them to tell him? Because he really wasn't seeking the truth. If anybody wants to know the truth, where can they go today? To the Bible. How many have ever run into people who want to complain about the Bible and say this about the Bible and say this isn't true and that's not true and this, but never actually read the Bible? You guys know people like that? It's like the high priest. Tell me what you've been teaching. Well, it's all written down, so what's the problem? You want to know? Read it. And then tell me what the problem is. Because that's what he says next. Verse 22. "And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, Answerest thou the high priest so? You dare to mock him in that way? And Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? Why are you hitting me? Because all I have spoken is what? The truth. Is the world always going to accept the truth? No. Will they sometimes strike out at the truth? Will they sometimes strike out at those who tell the truth? Yes. But here's the question we should ask. Do you want to know the truth or not? If you have a problem with it, show me where it's wrong. If you have a problem with it, show me where it's evil. Show me. And Jesus could have gone right down the line because he had before. Where have I contradicted the prophecies? Where have I contradicted the scriptures? Where have I contradicted the law? Where have I contradicted, said anything contrary to truth? And where had he? Not once. Not once. In fact, he came not to replace the law, but to what? Fulfill it. I mean, and what could they find on him? After all the trials and after all the Jewish trials, what could they find that he had said wrong, that he had said evil? What could they find? Nothing, except that he claimed to be God, which was in fulfillment of what prophecies? The Old Testament. In fact, before this, Jesus had said, hey, read the scriptures, search them, they speak of me. I am the one. So if anybody is seeking the truth, seek it. Anybody seeks the truth, can they find it? Yes. But if you're not willing to seek the truth, why ask God? If you got a problem with the truth, don't take it out on him. Right? Now that led to, of course, another trial. Let's go to verse 28. Verse 28, John chapter 18. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early, and they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Pilate then went out unto them and said, what accusation bring you against this man? What's the charge? They answered and said unto him, if he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him unto thee. That's a terrible answer. What's the charge? Well, of course there's a charge. If there wasn't a charge, why would he bring him to you? I'd love to see a DA do that in court sometime.
I'm sure you've tried it.
It's like, he's indicted, he's in court, he must have done something wrong. Clearly. What, would a DA bring somebody before the court without a real charge against him? No. Of course, Pilate's too smart for that. So, verse 31. Then said Pilate unto them, take you him and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, it is not lawful us to put any man to death. Again, this is why they brought him to Pilate, because the Jews could not actually kill somebody. Now, actually, they tried a couple times with Jesus and failed. So, I think that's going a little bit in their mind, too. We've tried this a couple of times. That didn't work well. So, we'll bring him to you. Verse 32. That the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spake, signifying by what death he should die. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again, and called Jesus, and said unto him, art thou the King of the Jews? Jesus answered him, sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me? And I think that's a very good question. I look at that question like this. Are you asking because you really want to know, because you have thought about this, or are you just asking because somebody else told you to ask? And is that a good question to ask people today? I would say this for a lot of different areas of life, but certainly when it comes to religion and when it comes to the truth of the Word of God. Are you just going to, are you asking this because this is what you've always been taught, or this is what you've thought? Are you just spouting somebody else's philosophies and ideas? Or have you really thought about this, and are you really seeking the truth? If somebody on their own is really thinking about it and really wants to know the truth, will they find it? Yes. If they go to the Word of God. But if they're just mouthing something somebody else said, and something they read on Facebook, or something they read here or there, or that person said this and this person said that, and that's all, it's very hard to get through that kind of person, isn't it? That's why Jesus is like, do you really want to know? Are you asking this because you want to know whether I truly am the King of the Jews, the Messiah, the one who's come to save the world? Or are you saying this because somebody put you up to this? Do you, Pilate, really want to know? And Pilate answered, am I a Jew? Thine own nation and the chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast thou done? And basically the answer was, no, I really don't care. I don't care to know who you are or what you're doing. That's irrelevant to me. Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, that would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from here. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. I am a king, but I came to tell people the what? Truth. And if you want to know the truth, Pilate, I'd be glad to tell it to you. To which Pilate gives his famous response. Pilate said to him, What is truth? And isn't that the way most people think today? Truth is whatever I believe it to be. Truth is whatever I want it to be. Truth is in the eye of the beholder, right? Truth can be changed. It can be rewritten. It can be. So what's the point of even seeking truth? I will just seek for what I believe and what I'm comfortable with. Is that a smart idea or a bad idea? That's a terrible idea. I don't know how people can still think that way, but they do. And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews and said unto them, I find in him no fault at all. He's done nothing wrong. Why are you bringing him here? And the question for all of them was, be it the high priest or be it Pilate, Jesus' response basically is, why are you asking me? Is it because you really want to know the truth? Or are you just trying to justify in your mind what you already think you believe? Or what somebody else has told you? Or whatever else it is? And it does make a difference, doesn't it? And as we interact with people in this world, that's a very good question we can ask. It's a good question we can ask for ourselves. When you go to God and say, Lord, help me to understand, help me to know the truth, are we really looking for the truth? Or are we just looking for something to justify our own beliefs and ideas? Because if we seek the truth, will we find it? Yes, we will. If we're willing to just open our heart to the truth. And is there a truth? Yes, there is. And then let's go to the famous question on the cross. Everybody go to Matthew chapter 27. Let's go back to Matthew. Anybody know what the one question he asked on the cross was? Matthew chapter 27, verse 45. Matthew 27:45. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. This is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's a very sad question, isn't it? Some of them that stood there when they heard that said, this man calls for Elias. Why would they think he was calling for Elias? Because Eli sounds like who? Which is funny, because this phrase is in what language? It's Arabic, and it's also a Greek form as well. It's a transliteration. It's a bit of a kind of a combination, but it's basically who should have understood what he said. Everybody should. Aramaic was very common. It's what most Jews spoke. Other ones spoke Greek. That was very common among especially the Sadducees in that group. They would have known what he was saying. But they immediately started thinking of Elijah, which is interesting because who were the Jews waiting for? Who was supposed to come before the Messiah? Elijah. Who do they still, and the Passover, every year still, open the door at the end of the Passover, seeing if he has come? Elijah, which is funny that he on the cross is saying Elijah, they think, and therefore their first thought is, ooh, maybe Elijah's coming to save him. Instead, who was he really calling on? In fact, what was he quoting? Let's go back to Psalm 22. Yeah, you'll read a lot of commentaries on why they mistook And for Eli, most are like, well, he'd been beaten and hanging on a cross for hours. He's probably hard to understand. And his mom like, okay. But he did say it with what? A very loud voice. And this was right before he died. So this is one of his last utterances, other than, into your hands I commit my spirit, and it is finished. I mean, he's on last. But as he's dying here, he does hearken back to Psalm 22. And Psalm 22 says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. And this is one of those heartbreaking type of psalms from David, as he felt abandoned by God. But let me ask you something. Was David ever abandoned by God? Was Jesus ever abandoned by God? No. All others would abandon him, but his Father would not abandon him. But do you feel that way? But notice how the rest of it goes. And would Jesus be familiar with the rest of the psalm?
Well, I have a theory that he was also trying, almost giving people something to think about. As well.
Because who around him should have also known Psalm 22?
There's a bunch of stuff in here that should have...
This is all about him. In fact, if this was a fact that he was almost dying, he may have just been saying, hey, let me give you the first verse, you guys finish the rest of it. Because this is all about him. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. They cried unto thee, and were delivered. They trusted in thee, and were not confounded. But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip. They shake the head, saying, he trusted on the Lord, that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. And is this very familiar to what happened to Jesus? He was hanging on a cross reserved for murderers and thieves, to be despised, and people were screaming at him and running him down and mocking him. This is a picture of Jesus, isn't it? This is what he's going through. But just like David comes to the conclusion in this psalm, was Jesus actually forsaken? No. In fact, let's go a little further. Jump down to verse 14. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaws. And thou hast brought me into the dust of death, for dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked has enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Which is kind of interesting, because did they actually do that to David? No. Who is David channeling here? What would happen to the Messiah? The one cut off. I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. 2. Basically, as he hung on that cross, he's basically saying, I can see my bones. And it's not like he was just skinny. His bones actually were what? Sticking out from the beatings that he took. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. But be not thou far from me, O Lord, O my strength. Haste thee to help me. Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. So as he hangs there, he's saying, why have you forsaken me? But really he's asking for what? Strength. To endure. To get through what he has to do. And how does this finish? Let's go to jump to verse 23. Ye that fear the Lord, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, glorify him, and fear him, all ye the seed of Israel. For he hath not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, neither has he hid his face from him. But when he cried unto him, he what? Heard. My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. I will pay my vows before them that fear him. The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise the Lord that seek him. Your heart shall live forever. All the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord. And all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. So who is God? Even as he's on there on the cross, he's kind of giving a nice little sermon here, isn't he? Just by giving those words. Remember, there are times you may feel forsaken. There may be times you feel like God has abandoned you. You may feel like times where it's just too much and you can't make it through. But who is still God in heaven? And who is still his child? You are. And will God get us through? And frankly, if God was willing to put his Son through this, that we may be his children, he's a pretty awesome God, isn't he? But that was a tough time. Like I said, this is Father's Day, to think that God the Father had to go through that and see his Son go through that for people who hated him. People that despised him. People that wanted nothing to do with him. Yet, the Father was willing to give his Son. And the Son was willing to obey the Father and go all the way through that for him. Which brings us to the questions that he asks. What are you doing here? Why do you do the things you do? Do you do it for him? For his glory? What do you want to know? Why do you want to know it? Seek the truth, right? Seek the truth from him and know that he's always with you, no matter what. Any questions? Comments? Let's pray.